Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Hey, Patriots, I got something for you. You want to know what it is? Well, come a little closer. Little closer. All right, now listen. Given the sensitive nature of this topic, I can't tell you exactly what it is. You're just going to have to guess. Are you ready? Here we go. And it's the bendy kind. Tastes like freedom. Don't tase me, bro. All right, listen, we got a lot of Q to do. Keep in mind, I always read through these one time. So if you want to skip through to the analysis, just click on the timestamp below. Also, keep in mind that I read Eastern Daylight Time, which is the actual time of Q's post. So here we go. 1748. 51 minutes after the hour of 11, we get these two tweets from Donald Trump. First one says, "Our great country has been divided for decades. Sometimes you need protest in order to heal, and we will heal and be stronger than ever before." The second one says, "I want to applaud the many protesters in Boston who are speaking out against bigotry and hate. Our country will soon come together as one." Q adds, listen very carefully. Then we have this Twitter link. POTUS Legal and Review. Huber in parentheses. Something big is about to drop. Q. Post 1749, 13 minutes after the hour of 1, we get this Reddit link. Q says, "Patriots are united in their pursuit of common goals. Good versus evil. Right versus wrong. Humanity. Power over another person is not okay. Patriots are not divided. Borders do not separate us. We fight together. We are strong together. We, the people. Where we go one, we go all." Q. Post 1750. 28 minutes after the hour of 1, we get this link. Q says, "They do not want you asking questions. They do not want you thinking for yourself. They do not want you united. They want you to live in fear/divided. They want you asleep. They want you blind. The message must bypass the MSM, mainstream media. It's the only way. People united hold the power. Think election 2016. Power shall be returned to the people." Q. Post 1751, 36 minutes after the hour of 12, Q adds on, "Every C missing the IA/MOS tactic of infiltration and internal disruption is being deployed on this board. Central hub in parentheses. The world is here. Recognize. This movement is bigger than anyone can possibly imagine. Peace through strength. Q." Post 1752, 13 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m., we get this picture of this building. And then another closer picture of the building. And a link to Avenatti.com. Q says, "Buckle up." Q. Post 1753, 53 minutes past the hour, 2 p.m. Foundation, bottom to top. Layers. FISA equals foundation. Start. People are more aware of current events. Establish. Link. Think criminal/illegal acts to prevent/overturn presidential election of POTUS. Public awareness. Evidence introduced. MSM covert link. Think Sessions open statement regarding leak investigations. How do you build a home? Foundation to structure. Layers in parentheses. Huber. Layers. Uranium 1, Iran. Human traffic. Haiti. Corruption, etc., etc. Logical thinking. Q. Post 1754. 3 o'clock. We get this picture of this guy. Offices of MA, I'm assuming it's Michael Avenatti. Work on Sunday. Who is supplying feed? Who is financing? Q. Post 1755. 7 minutes after the hour, 3 p.m. We get this Anon who says, "Are we live? Do it!" Q says, 5-minute delay. Message sent. Q. Post 1756. 18 minutes after the hour, 3 p.m. An Anon posts this Donald J. Trump tweet. "When the media, driven insane by their Trump derangement syndrome, reveals internal deliberations of our government, it truly puts the lives of many, not just journalists, at risk. Very unpatriotic. Freedom of the press also comes with a responsibility to report the news." And the Anon says 2-minute delta. Q says, "What a coincidence." MSM in kill brackets. Q. Post 1757, 42 minutes after the hour of 4. We get this picture of this missile that we've seen from skunkbayweather.com, posted on June 10th. Q says, "Do you believe in coincidences?" And then we have a link to Michael Avenatti's Twitter. Q. Post 1758, 48 minutes after the hour, 4 p.m., we get this Anon post, a John Brennan tweet. Your wrong-headed protectionist policies and antics are damaging our global standing as well as our national interests. Your worldview does not represent American ideals. To allies and friends, be patient. Mr. Trump is a temporary aberration. The America you once knew will return. And Q says, this is not a game. Q. Post 1759, 53 minutes after the hour of 4, an Anon post. Who is the real Michael Avenatti? Q confirms. Post 1760, 28 minutes after the hour, 5 p.m., an Anon posts this screenshot from Michael Avenatti's Twitter. This week promises to be very interesting. Might want to follow my Insta handle, MJ Avenatti. And then we have this picture here with what looks to be someone locking down on a plane. Q takes us back to a June 10th post. Start the clock. A week 2, remember in brackets, think logically. First, private. Classification 5 and 6 in parentheses in brackets. Second, public. Blackwater on guard. Evidence kills. These people are stupid. Q. And Q confirms this. Post 1761, 9 minutes after the hour of 6. Bigger than you realize. They know the real traffic this is generating. Connecting people together. And then we have another link. Stay the course. Q. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take you back here. Post 1748. We have these older tweets from Donald Trump. Our great country has been divided for decades. Sometimes you need to protest in order to heal, and we will heal and be stronger than ever before. And the second one says, I want to applaud the many protesters in Boston who are speaking out against bigotry and hate. Our country will soon come together as one. Now, Q says, listen very carefully, and takes us to this Fox link right here. Q says, POTUS legal in review. Huber, something big is about to drop. Now, I'm not going to play you the whole thing, although I think it's about a 6-minute interview with Representative Devin Nunes and Maria Bartiromo. And it's a good interview. It's about 6 minutes long. I'm only going to take you to the last couple minutes here just for copyright purposes, but I highly suggest that you listen to the whole thing. There's a lot of good gems in there. So let's take a look.
What happens if the House flips and the Democrats take the majority in the House come the midterm elections? To this story.
That is what I said in the Wall Street Journal interview. Yeah, the Wall Street Journal interview over the weekend, I stated that I am quite confident because I've seen this game played many times before. There's a stall game going on at DOJ and FBI. They're trying to stall as much as they can, hoping and betting that Republicans would lose the House in the fall. And if that happens, then it shuts down everything. Rod Rosenstein will not be held in contempt. FBI will not be held accountable. All these investigations will shut down. Everything will be buried. And you'll be left with media narratives saying, oh, what the public can't read, what you really can't read, what's blacked out, that's the really bad stuff against Carter Page and the Republicans and the Trump campaign. That's why the sooner the president declassifies this, the better. And I think the American people need to understand how important it's going to be to get out and vote in this election.
Well, tell us where your investigation stands right now. Is Rod Rosenstein performing? Do you think his leadership is encouraging them to be up front and show us justice?
Well, what I can tell you is that there was a move late last week to begin impeachment. I think there are grounds for impeachment, and we should hold them accountable. I think Congress has given up way too much power. The way I understand it is that the Judiciary Committee and Oversight Committee got commitments on Friday. I think the Speaker also got commitments, from what I understand, that documents will be provided. So we're short a few documents. We are supposed to see those this week. But in addition to that, interviews/depositions will begin over August. So we will have members of Congress that will be flying back to Washington during August to conduct interviews with very important witnesses that need to be interviewed as it relates to getting to the bottom of this Russiagate scandal.
There you have it. People flying into Washington for these very important witnesses that need to be interviewed. Dun, dun, dun. Well, there's Devin Nunes, and he's kicking down some knowledge about what's going to be happening soon. Looks like this week we're also going to get some more, I don't know, some sort of documents or something. But POTUS, legal in review. I'm going to assume that whatever we get, POTUS is probably going to have to declass. But I can't imagine it being a full declass for obvious reasons. After all, this guy right here still probably needs them. So I would not expect the Whopper with cheese, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get to gnaw on a little bacon. Something big is about to drop. So it might be in relation to whatever documents get released, and it might be in relation to these interviews as well, too. We shall see how that goes. But Q is saying something big. And I also think that this is kind of a little bit of a bone for some of us to chew on. After all, if you remember from yesterday's video, Q sprayed us with the caps lock, drive-by Q. And I think Q is also realizing that, hey, like I said, if we can't get the Whopper with cheese, at least give us something. And that might be very well what it is. And this is probably just likely another installment of As the World Turns. But hopefully it'll be something big. Q saying it's something big. And, the Facebook drop was big. I thought that was pretty big. I think this will probably be bigger. There's a lot of people that think the big could be related to Tom Hanks, who starred in the movie Big. Now, I'm not ready to go there on that yet. I think that's kind of changing the topic for Q. Q usually stays on task with that kind of stuff. Not to say that something big couldn't go down with Tom Hanks, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think this is probably in regards to the DOJ documents. So we shall see what goes on. But it looks to me like if the only situation at this point is for POTUS to declass, and we know that POTUS really can't declass everything, but it looks like they're reviewing things with Huber to see what can we give these people, to really kind of satisfy something big. And so we shall see what happens. Let's move on. 1749. Q gives us this Reddit link, and before I even move on to this post, let's just go ahead and read it. This is a letter to America, and this is posted by The Revolution Begins. I'm one of the many who are watching these historic events unfold from the outside. I'm neither American-born nor domiciled. I have visited your fair country on several occasions during my 50 years on this planet and have always felt an affinity with you, the average Joe American. That is because the average Joe American is warm, welcoming, decent, and brave. You respect those that have put on your military uniform and risked all for your country, and I respect that. You honor your founders and foundational and very unique Constitution, and I can respect that. You look out for your communities and families, and I respect that too. You have, in essence, a decency and strength that is truly worthy of the moniker American exceptionalism. America is not just a word or idea. It is a people who share common values of freedom, independence, equality, family, loyalty. I appreciate this message. It's going to sound a little corny, but I see you being attacked by half the country. I see the frustration in some of you that arrests are not coming fast enough. And I saw tonight Q's frustration that we weren't seeing the progress that was occurring right before our eyes, nor the complexity and danger of the war that was raging around us. We've all been chosen by God to live in this period of history, a time when in all likelihood the United States is all that stands between our civilization's total capitulation to this evil, and a future that we would want to pass on to those who inherit this earth from us. However, it is you, the citizens of the United States of America, that are bearing the greatest burden in this fight. Your media likes to tell you that you're despised throughout the world, that anti-Americanism is widespread, and that you should tread more lightly. I would like to say to you that this is BS. What is happening at this moment in time, led by your president, and this phenomenon of Q, is attracting the attention and support of the world. We are you, and you are us. We share your contempt for the corruption, for those that would sell out the interests of our countries for their own benefit, and most egregiously harm our children in ways we had not even believed were possible. As you are attacked by both your own and the international media, and those in your community who have not yet or may never wake up to what has and is happening, please know that you are not alone in this fight. What you are doing is inspiring. It is glorious and just. To President Trump and Q, and those at the sharp end of this war, whilst not American citizens, please know that we outsiders are in awe of you and those who stand beside you. We know that this has not been attempted before. We see the gravity of what's unfolding, and the courage and spirit it took to engage such an enemy. It's clear that this international cabal still has the ability to inflict pain and death, and no hesitation to do so. It's hidden, clever, evil, and well dug in. Lest we forget this is a real war and good people are dying. Please know that there are many out there who understand your sacrifices and the risk being taken on our behalf. Thank you. And God bless us all. Where we go one, we go all. Beautiful, no? Q says, Patriots are united in their pursuit of common goals. Good versus evil, right versus wrong, humanity. Power over another person is not okay. Yeah, look, sometimes it feels like we're in the ditches. And sometimes it feels like we're just spinning our wheels, reminding ourselves of the same things. But the fact of the matter is that good men and women are fighting all over the country, all over the world right now for their ability to speak their piece. And we can disagree on tons of things. But what we really should be looking for is, what do we unite on? You see, a lot of civil libertarians, we don't tend to want to unite with people. We're so independent-minded. We're very capable of finding our own answers, our own truth, or at least knowing where to start. And we forget sometimes the power in that unity. And that's something that, admittedly, the deep state has always taken advantage of. They're real good at throwing a party. They're real good at making movies and music. And they're really good at getting their message out and owning the social media and being the cooler group and doing the parades and wearing the ribbons and the hashtags. They were always really good at that. And through this fight, we're kind of discovering that we're good at some things too, aren't we? We're good at a lot of things. And we've got truth on our side, God on our side, love on our side, righteousness on our side. Power over another person is not okay. Now, people have the freedom to be alpha or beta if they want. But to hold dominion over someone is not okay. To shadow ban your majority is not okay. Patriots are not divided. We don't disagree on as much as you think. And I think that we should spend a lot of time on what we agree about and what we can do about it and how do we mobilize in our own communities. Something that doesn't feel so daunting. Borders do not separate us. No, they enhance us in a lot of ways. They allow us to have our autonomy, and they allow us to disagree at times, even with our own country. It's a republic. It allows states to disagree. It's not a perfect system, but it's pretty sweet. We fight together. We are strong together. We, the people. Where we go one, we go all. Let's move on. Post 1750, we get this link right here, and it takes us to Real Clear Politics, and on it there is a video from MSNBC where this guy, Ali Velshi, is going to, quote-unquote, thoroughly debunk QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy theory. And here's what I want you to do. Every time you see this link to Ali Velshi, I would love it if you would add this link here. QAnon. Share this video. In Pursuit of Truth presents, and it's dated from the 21st, where I spend 17 minutes of my life debunking and disassembling Ali Velshi, who has still not responded to my tweets. And like I said, in this video, he proceeds to put, as you can see, there's a bunch of, I'll try and see if I can bring this up because I'm not going to play it. But you can see all this QAnon, these QAnon posts behind him here, and he's going to tell you about how it's all fake. And yet he doesn't read any of these posts. He reads one, but he kind of tries to make it sound. Anyway, it's a bunch of trash. Okay? Don't want to spend a bunch of time on it because I did already. Every time you see that, do me a favor. Pass this on. This is the kind of war we're in right now, war of information. So every time they post these dumbass articles here, we combat them with stuff like that. That's the best way that we can start red-pilling people online. All right, Q says they do not want you asking questions. No, they want to tell you what Q is first. They want to systematically debunk it. They don't want you thinking for yourself. They want you to think that you had to go to the App Store, and now that Q apps were removed from the App Store, you're no longer going to get the information. Well, that just isn't true. An app is just an app to help you get to QAnon. We all know you can go right here to QAnon.pub and get it for free. Hey, you can get the app if you want, if you can still upload it or not. Not really sure. That's not really the point, is it? They do not want you united. They want you to live in fear, divided. Yeah, they want you to think that this is something really, really creepy, and that President Trump He's public enemy number one. He's endangering all of our lives with his reckless behavior. They want you asleep. They want you blind. The message must bypass the MSM. It's the only way. And that's why I'm saying, every time you see this, and Ali Velshi, do me a favor and post this video. Just share the hell out of this video. Really, this kind of thing is very important right now. We've got to combat disinformation rather than just throwing up our hands in the air and doing like we always do and go, well, that's the left. Okay? No more of that. No more of that. We're on offense now. You understand what I'm saying? And if it's not my video or somebody else's video, but you get the idea. These are really, really easy things that we can do. And these are the things that we can win at. Because after all, we are the meme makers. We're way better meme makers. They're terrible meme makers. All right. The message must bypass the MSM. It's the only way. We know this. And look, we all know Fox isn't on our side either. Okay? Nobody's really, really on our side. I'm on your side. You're on mine. So let's get to work. Think election 2016. My goodness. Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? What a different world. Ugliness and fear. And then all of a sudden this amazing wave of hope. Power shall be returned to the people. Imagine that. Let's not let it go this time, yeah? Let's move on. 1751. Q adds on here. Says and this would be CIA, MOS tactic of infiltration and internal disruption is being deployed on this board central hub. Excuse me. Now, if I may, I want to touch on a couple things. There are a lot of people that are sort of new to this QAnon phenomenon that have asked, Patrick, what are all these dots under some of these abbreviations and things like that? If you'll notice, as I hover my mouse over there, it tells you that this means Central Intelligence Agency. Now, it used to be abbreviated CIA, but they no longer have their intelligence. That's why they no longer have the I. But this would be CIA. Now with this MOS, we don't have it under there yet because Q hasn't really used this a lot. Now I'm going to assume this probably means Mossad, and we're going to get to that in a second. But let me just scroll up a little bit. Here's another one, MSM. Okay, and if I hover my mouse over there on the QAnon.pub board, it tells you that it's mainstream media. Okay, so for some of those who are new to the Q phenomenon that are trying to figure out some of these abbreviations, that's what those dots do. It's not really a hyperlink. I don't really know what you call that, sorry, but it tells you what it is. Okay, so thanks for those questions. I'm glad that somebody spoke up on that because it's always good to back up and let people know about that. Now with this one, like I said, it's new. I'm going to assume this means Mossad. They're connecting it to the CIA. They're talking about using tactics of infiltration and internal disruption, so it leads me to think that we're talking about Mossad, and that's going to kind of lend itself to the rest of a narrative in this Q post today. But yeah, it says every CIA, Mossad tactic of infiltration and internal disruption is being deployed on this board, Central Hub. This is where it's at. This is where everyone's coming for their news. Long gone are the days of the 4 a.m. talking points being the real deal. All those media outlets are tanking. Now, Fox is not, but a lot of the other ones are. And the world is here. So hello, world. Welcome. You should be on my channel. Because sometimes we have cake. And cake is good. Q says recognize. Because Q recognizes that cake is good. I don't think that's maybe what he means, but it's my reading. Anyway, the world is here. It's not just American patriots anymore. It's Canadians. It's Brits, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Australia, New Zealand, Africa. I don't care where you're from. You're welcome here. This movement is bigger than anyone can possibly imagine. Peace through strength. How exciting is that? Hey, do me a favor. Flex your biceps. We're winning. So get your flex on. Let's go. Post 1752. Q takes us to these two pictures right here and here. And then there's a link to Avenatti.com. Q says, buckle up. Q. And let me show you the pictures over here. Here's the first. And here's the second. And I can tell you that we are right here at 520 Newport Center Drive. And let me take you back to the first picture here. You can see the 2 rows of cypresses. And then you've got some palms in the background leading up to the building. And here are the cypress trees with the palms right next to the building here. So whoever was taking this picture was probably just pulling right out of the car off of Newport Center Drive looking straight ahead. And it should be no surprise. After all, this is the offices of Michael Avenatti. There's a picture there. You can see that's actually the back side of the courtyard, 520 Newport Center Drive. Now, we're going to go into Michael Avenatti. I cannot go as deep as I'd like because there's so many Q posts, but I want to touch on a couple quick things here first before we even get to him. Now, this is off of his bio in the early years. And it says, while in college and later in law school, Michael worked at a political opposition research and media firm run by Rahm Emanuel, who later became White House Chief of Staff and is presently the mayor of Chicago. During his time there, Michael worked on over 150 campaigns in 42 states, including multiple gubernatorial and congressional campaigns, i.e. Joe Biden's U.S. Senate campaign. Okay, so creepy Joe Biden, he helped work with him, and he was working for this political opposition research and media firm, which already sounds creepy, but the fact that it was run by Rahm Emanuel should tell you that it's very, very creepy. And of course, he is presently the mayor of Chicago. And Rahm Emanuel is why I would assume that Q was probably talking about Mossad in regards to MOS. Rahm Emanuel's father was Sherman Skolnick, and he was definitely Mossad. And former FBI Director John O'Neill called out Rahm Emanuel a while back as Mossad as well, too. Rahm Emanuel's got a lot of creepy context, and like I said, his father definitely seemed to be an agent. He was part of the Irgun group, and they were responsible way back in the day for, well, the murder of a lot of British citizens, but in particular, it was the United Nations Count Bernadotte, who I believe was also head of the Swedish Red Cross at the time. So a lot of creepy things. And of course, Rahm Emanuel, well wrapped up with the Clintons as well. He was a very key figure in their administration. He also served during the Gulf War. He's a dual citizen, Israel and the United States. He served for Israel during the Gulf War. So it looks to me like there could be some really, really deep Mossad connections, and probably ones that I'm just scratching the surface on just with Emanuel himself. But let's get back to Michael. So currently, Michael Avenatti comes out with this claim against Michael Cohen, saying that this Korean aerospace company paid a whole bunch of money to a consulting firm. And this consulting firm called Essential Consulting Firm was linked to Michael Cohen. Doesn't necessarily mean that Korea Aerospace was linked to Michael Cohen. Very well could be. But let's remember, it was linked to Essential Consulting. And it was for just that, for consulting. Now, it is a little strange, but not completely out of the scope of believability, that a Korean aerospace company would try to get in on a defense contract for the U.S. Air Force. It was for training aircraft, okay? And it was also kind of a joint venture with Lockheed Martin. $16.3 billion for an advanced pilot training project. And Lockheed says, we don't know anything about it. We don't have any knowledge of a business relationship between any Korea Aerospace Industries and Mr. Cohen, and are not aware of any connection that it may have to the U.S. Air Force Advanced Pilot Training Competition. Okay, everybody could be lying or not. Don't really know, but that's what Lockheed's saying. Now, these payments were made to Cohen in November. Okay, fair enough. But they were paid to this Essential receive the money. I don't see any records of Mr. Cohen necessarily receiving that money. Now, maybe he did. And Avenatti's report also says that he got $500,000 from Russian oligarch Viktor Vekselberg to a separate LLC shortly after the 2016 election, helped pay alleged hush money to Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford. Vekselberg has also been linked to the special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Okay, so this gets really, really weird, doesn't it? And it looks like this knucklehead Cohen probably is going to be looking at some fraud. We know something's just not quite right about him. However, how did Avenatti get this report? It's not like Cohen's his client. How did he get that? And you got Michael Cohen over here saying that some of these are different Michael Cohens. So this is a very, very strange kind of set of claims and counterclaims, right? And how did Avenatti come up with all this? These financial records and things like that. And, and everyone's kind of scratching their head. It seems very, very unprofessional for a lawyer to do. Now, just a couple days later, this was back in May still, you get Giuliani saying that he's not going to get involved with pimps. It was in regards to having a discussion, like an on-air discussion with Avenatti. And Rudy Giuliani calls him pimp. Now, was he just talking about the reference to being Stormy Daniels' lawyer? Don't know. But it seems like he was alluding in this article that, like he says here, I don't get involved with pimps, Giuliani said. The media loves to give him room because he makes these roundabout charges, and they turn out to mean nothing. I think he's going to get himself in serious trouble. All right. Now, I'm just going to stop there real quick and just give you an assumption. It's an assumption only. You can take it or leave it. But what that led me to believe is not only, yes, of course, we all know the media loves to give him room, but think about how much time this Avenatti has spent on the media. And if you remember back, there were a bunch of people clowning Stormy Daniels on Twitter about paying this Avenatti. And she kind of clapped back and said, I'm not paying him, which made everybody give a big pause. Wait a minute, you're not paying him. Who's paying him? And now you got Giuliani here saying back in May, the media loves to give him room. Of course they love to give him room, but they probably also like to give him money. After all, when you go on and do those interviews, you make money. Fact. And he seems to get a lot of grandstanding going on. He's got himself a big Twitter following, and he's a bit of a media hero, isn't he? Giuliani says he makes these roundabout charges and they turn out to mean nothing. I think that he's going to get himself in trouble. Now, very likely that this Cohen is wrapped up in some of his own messes, like I said. But this Avenatti coming out with these, let me see if it mentions it here. Here we go. The company's paid Cohen more than $1.2 million through Essential Consultants LLC, a shell company he set up to facilitate a $130,000 hush money payment to Daniels, who said she had an affair with Trump in 2006. Let me stop right there. Billionaires do this kind of thing, and I don't think I need to explain that to you. Billionaires just do that kind of thing. Sometimes it's just easier to pay these people and let them go away. And on the flip side of that, there are professionals, and I'm not talking Stormy Daniels professional, I'm talking professional women that get up in your life only for the sake of earning that hush money. They know it, they'll play it patiently, and they do it all the time. That's why these billionaires have these hush money payments in the first place. It's ugly, but it's a fact. It just happens. Cohen and White House aides deny that any affair took place, though Giuliani made headlines last week when he said Trump had reimbursed Cohen for the payment. Yeah, we heard this kind of sketchy audio. Nothing really that sticks. And again, that's kind of that, the sort of roundabout claims that Giuliani is talking about, right? Avenatti did not make clear how he obtained the banking records, and experts were left guessing just how he came upon them. Yeah, that's not okay to do. That's not what a good lawyer would do. The Treasury Department's Inspector General opened an investigation this week into whether suspicious activity reports were leaked to Avenatti. So we got ourselves another leaker. And down here, Giuliani says, I think he's got a lot of explaining to do, Giuliani said of Avenatti, adding that he did not know how Avenatti would have come upon these records. I wouldn't debate him because it wouldn't be fair, the former New York mayor and U.S. attorney continued. He added, I debate like really intelligent, skilled people, pointing to the famed attorney and Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. I know Alan Dershowitz, Giuliani said. He's no Alan Dershowitz. Well, folks, whether you like Giuliani or Dershowitz, I think we can probably all agree that Avenatti is not really on that level. These are good lawyers. And look at this little gem right here. Here's a picture for the wallet. In 2015, Michael teamed at the 24 Hours of Le Mans with Saudi Prince Abdulaziz Turki Al Faisal. Yeah, I told you, Michael Avenatti likes to drive the race cars. After all, his name's Avenatti. If my name were Avenatti, I'd drive race cars too. But my name's Sir Patrick Mack, and I got no race car. Prince Abdulaziz was born on the 4th of June, 1983 in Riyadh. He is the second son of Turki bin Faisal Al Saud, who is this right here. The brother of Faisal bin Turki Al Faisal, which is basically just the same damn name backwards, and a grandson of Faisal of Saudi Arabia. And as you can see here, Prince Turki began his political career as deputy to his uncle, Kamal Adam, and then his successor as the head of Saudi Arabia's Al-Mukhabarat Al-A'ama, General Intelligence Directorate, a position he held for 23 years from 1979 until just 10 days before the September 11th attacks in 2001. In 2002, Prince Turki was named in a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit by the families of, I think that's meant to say September 11th victims, alleging that he and other Saudi princes, banks, and charities may have funded the terrorists involved in the attack. His involvement was also strongly implied in the Michael Moore documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11. A reporter for the Baltimore Chronicle claimed he was flown out of the United States shortly after the terrorist attacks, but the claim disappeared from later versions of the article. How about that, huh? So you've got Mr. Avenatti linked to a family that was linked to 9/11. And at the same time, you've got Avenatti, who was linked to a guy who's in Mossad, who's never really been mentioned in 9/11. Wink, wink, nod, nod. It's hard to talk about Mossad. Now, Mr. Avenatti turns out to be a star student of this Jonathan Turley. And Jonathan Turley, he is a professor over at George Washington University. He's also a legal scholar and analyst, and he does a lot of things. But more recently, you may remember him as being the guy who was talking about Inspector Huber in regards to the Breitbart article that Q is always posting. Okay, the one that Q is always referencing us to. That's Jonathan Turley speaking about Huber. And like I said, Avenatti turns out to be a pretty good student of Turley's. As a matter of fact, later established the Michael J. Avenatti Award for Excellence in Pretrial and Trial Advocacy. And it's an annual award. And it looks like just recently here in April, they got together and gave away this award. Now, I don't know how close they are other than the fact that he's a former student, but they obviously know each other. And it seems like he was definitely a star student. And here's the event itself. Said there will be light refreshments after the event. I bet they didn't have cake. I have cake. Just saying. So, here you go. You have a lot of eerie connections in this. You have this Avenatti who was formerly a student of this Jonathan Turley, both at George Washington University, which, if you ask me, turns out a lot of... this is debatable, I suppose, but you could argue that a lot of spies, a lot of agents, things like that, seems to be kind of a breeding grounds, this George Washington University. And now we see two connections with Avenatti, both with the House of Saud as well as Mossad. And I guess having that basic knowledge, it's no wonder he's a media darling. So there's a lot more we could go into with Avenatti. We've got way too much Q to do, but hopefully that'll kind of get you started. Lots of creepy connections. I have a feeling we're going to find out more in the next coming weeks. So let's move on. Q says here, buckle up. And Q is referring to this tweet from Michael Avenatti, directed at Rudy Giuliani, in where he says, are you denying that there were other hush payments made to as yet unnamed women in connection with the 2016 campaign? Asking for some friends. You better buckle up, Buttercup, because Mr. Trump's stupidity and disloyalty is about to catch up to him and you. Tough words from Mr. Avenatti. It's almost like he thinks he's a mafia boss or something like that. Let's move on to the next post. 1753. Q says foundation, bottom to top. And that's what we've been doing, right? As we've been cleaning out the departments, FBI, DOJ, all the different retirings and the firings and the CEOs resigning, layers. And Q, as well as President Trump, has referred to Lisa Page as a layer. FISA equals foundation. That's the foundation. If people don't understand what happened with this FISA abuse, they're never going to be able to understand the deeper part of the story. Now, for a lot of us who've been following alternative media, we've been able to kind of figure this out already. We're very impatient on this. But this is still a common understanding that's not yet common. That's the start. People are more aware of current events. Yeah, people know more about what's happening with their favorite rapper or their favorite TV show, whatever it is, than they know what's going on with this. Establish a link. We have to make them understand why it matters. Think criminal, illegal acts to prevent overturned presidential election. Well, we know all about that, right? This whole establishment for this FISA warrant was founded on an illegal act. There was no there. And they had to go to the UK to try and drum up some fake information. And it only turns out that now we were conspiring with the UK, or they were conspiring with the UK. Public awareness. It's super important. If nobody understands that, they're never going to be able to move forward with the real important stuff. And that's why it's so hard to try and get them to figure this out, because if they need to care, because if they don't understand that, they never will. Evidence introduced. So we've already got some evidence, and it doesn't seem to be compelling enough to really swing the general population. And now Q says MSM covert link. And I think that's where we're kind of talking, at least that I'm starting to suspect with this Avenatti fellow. Okay, keep in mind, he's linked to Mossad, he's linked to the House of Saud, and he's linked to George Washington University, which suggests to me, and I'm just saying, suggests to me CIA. All right? And keep in mind, he's got an Italian last name, Avenatti. Thinks he's kind of a Toff Tucker. MSM covert link. They really love giving him all that time. That's how they do it. They put all these people on their stations, and they dominate the airwaves so that you only really get one narrative beat into you. Remember the idea with CNN. When you go to an airport, you would only see CNN. You couldn't see any other, a lot of other stations. There's a reason for that. Think Sessions' opening statement regarding leak investigations. Yeah, he said there was not going to be any leaks. No leaks. They had to stop a bunch of leaks. And all the leakers were already, they left. And who were those linkers? Clapper, Brennan, and where did they go? They went to the MSM. Comey went around, did a bunch of interviews, and had his book. Remember, Mr. Joe Friday. So they were leaking. How do you build a home? Well, you can't have leaks when you build a home. You got to have a good foundation. Layers. And I think that's why Q was referring to Lisa Page as a layer, because she's one of the first important layers. She's one of the first people that laid down a foundation with some testimony. Now, there's probably been other testimony that maybe Huber's been dealing with, but we haven't heard that yet. Enter Huber. And now Q talks about these layers. And I'm assuming this is sort of the process that we need to go with. And I'm talking about the outward narrative, okay? So you got to get people to understand what happened with Uranium One, what really happened, and where did it go? It went to multiple countries, but ultimately everything was going to Iran. And it wasn't just about uranium going to Iran. Remember, they had mines in Kazakhstan that Warren Buffett was making billions off of as well, too. But this was about a black site. They could bring their automobile companies, they could bring their energy companies like Total SA, oil companies, you name it. And a lot of green tech companies, biotech companies, tons of companies. And remember the big deal that was going on with all that. Not just Iran, but Syria, which is also kind of a proxy to that. And we were talking about tunnels. And what were in those tunnels? Ammunition, oil, children, human trafficking, tunnels, medical equipment, all that kind of stuff. And so when we get the basic understanding out into the outward narrative, what happened with Uranium One and how it relates to Iran, we realize that Iran was so much more than just nukes. It was human trafficking. And that's when people will care. I hope. And that's why they're pushing the pedophilia narrative so much. That's why they're trying to get out in front of it, because pretty soon we're going to find out how creepy everybody really involved really was. And it's going to snowball into Haiti, which was essentially the same thing. Okay? And all these situations, whether it be earthquakes or floods or hurricanes, natural disasters, and all of a sudden you have these humanitarian quote-unquote groups like FEMA and Red Cross and the UN or whatever. They all come in and step in under the guise of saying, hey, we're going to help out. And you have all these displaced children. Where do they go? And meanwhile, you got these FEMA, massive FEMA boats floating offshore, because it's legal to float offshore, all ready to house these people who were displaced. So what are you going to do? So they put them on these boats, and then what happens? And remember, these massive shipping containers and things like that on these massive boats, they can't get scanned. And so you can take them anywhere you want, to any port, anywhere you want. And that's what Haiti essentially was. It was so much more than that, but I'm trying to just kind of give you a general idea of it. That's the corruption, etc. Logical thinking. Q. 1754, we get a picture of this guy walking down the street. Q says, offices of MA, Michael Avenatti, work on Sunday. Who is supplying feed? Who is financing? All right, well, the best guess that I can find is that this guy appears to be about half a block away here, where you can see the red dot at 450 Newport Center. And the reason you can tell is by this sort of line right here. It looks like he's walking up the street. So could it be that this guy maybe got out of this car? The guy's taking a picture. So could it be that this guy is working with the Q team, or he's being spied on? Remember, we don't know the sources of these pictures. They're not all necessarily just from the Q team. They could be sourced other ways. But Q always says that these are original. It looks like they dropped them off up here, Avenatti's offices. would be up here. Okay, so there you go. Now, I'm not exactly sure who this guy is. There are some Anons on 8chan who think it's this guy. And his name is John Edward Alite. And he is a Albanian, also known as Johnny Aletto, and is an American FBI informant, an associate of the Gambino crime family and John A. Gotti in the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s. He fled in 2003 after learning he had been targeted for murder. Former mafia hitman, porn star connoisseur. Yeah, I remember a little bit about this guy because he kind of came out, he wrote some books, and he was in some films and stuff. I think he fled to Rio. And he was one of the top guys in the Gambino family. Now, because he was Albanian, he couldn't be a made man. And he ended up getting busted. I think it was a couple murders or whatever. I think that's why he fled. But he ended up becoming, I think, an informant. So it'd be really interesting if this is him. I'm not exactly sure, but the pictures do look pretty compelling. And I don't personally have anything better. Now, it looks like he might be a little bit thicker in the neck. But I could be wrong. But it's definitely a pretty good guess. I don't want to go way into it if we don't know. But an interesting guess. So could it be that maybe the Q team is sending out a former mafia guy to do some live discussion with our man Avenatti? Now, let's go back to the Q post. Q is saying, work on Sunday? Well, I don't work on Sunday generally. Who is supplying feed? So I'm assuming that we're going live. Maybe this guy's got a wire. Maybe he's going to go do a little negotiation, wise guy style with Avenatti. So what do you think? Do you think this guy's going to cooperate, or do you think this guy's going to operate something else? I don't want to speak to this too much because if it is something important enough, then it might not be any of my business until it's all over. But Q also is asking who is financing. Okay, keep in mind Avenatti. He's got a lot of eerie connections, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's got some connections to some crime families. Other than, of course, Mossad in the House of Saud. Okay, so, but until then, I really don't know. Those are just my best guesses so far. Now, in the next post, 1755, this Anon says, are we live? Do it, meaning that we have a live feed going on. And Q says, 5-minute delay, message sent. Now, keep in mind, I generally, these posts are in EST, but it would be 3 p.m., okay, 3:07 EDT, right? And then we get this tweet in the next post at 3:09, 2 minutes later, or this Anon says 2 minutes Delta. When the media, driven insane by their Trump derangement syndrome, reveals internal deliberations of our government, it truly puts the lives of many, not just journalists, at risk. Very unpatriotic. Freedom of the press also comes with a responsibility to report the news. And then Q says, what a coincidence. MSM Q, and MSM is in kill bracket, so I have a feeling that something big is going to happen probably to the MSM, and I wonder if it has to do with their connection and or likely funding of this Michael Avenatti, the whole Stormy Daniels situation. I think you see where we're going with this. Maybe we'll find the farce in all this, and maybe that will be a story that the general public would be able to truly understand. All right, let's move on to the next post. Post 1757. Q posts this picture of, and you remember this from back in June 10th, and we talked about this, and if you don't remember, this was purportedly a missile launch from a sub out of Skunk Base near Whidbey Island, Pacific Northwest, and this was the exact same time that President Trump was in transit to the North Korea summit. And after that, he went off to the G7 and whatnot. And then Q gives us this Twitter link right here to guess who? Michael Avenatti. Michael Avenatti tweets on the same day, June 10th, this picture, and says, this week promises to be very interesting. Might want to follow my Insta handle, MJ Avenatti. Well, that's not just cryptic and weird. That's downright Snidely Whiplash creepy. This Michael Avenatti posting this on the same day that we see this. Q says, do you believe in coincidences? Q, no, I don't. This Avenatti guy seems really creepy. And he's not your typical shrinking violet kind of liberal guy. You know what I mean? He fancies himself as kind of a tough guy, so kind of a, definitely thinks of himself as an alpha male. So we'll see how this happens, but I have a feeling that Avenatti is about to either have to make a deal or he's going to get exposed as far as his history and his connections. And once that happens, the whole Stormy Daniels thing is going to fall apart. That'll mean the Cohen thing will probably also fall apart. And then maybe we can actually focus on the FISA Foundation. Let's move on. Next post, 1758. Q takes us to, an anonymous post. This tweet from June 10th was that same day. Your wrong-headed protectionist policies and antics are damaging our global standing as well as our national interests. Your worldview does not represent American ideals. To allies and friends, be patient. Mr. Trump is a temporary aberration. The America you once knew will return. Wow. Well, that's pretty fortuitous timing, isn't it, John Brennan? Same day that we get this from Michael Avenatti and we get this from Q. So you see the serious nature of this. And in the next post, Anon says, who's the real Michael Avenatti? Q acknowledges, meaning that it's important that we look into Michael Avenatti's connections. Now, I've given you some surface level ones, and I have a feeling we're going to find way more because there's quite honestly, if I hadn't had so much Q to report, I think it would be really fun to kind of dig into it. But I think we're going to find a lot more, and he's definitely barking loud, and he's definitely putting up a really big fight with the Stormy Daniels thing. And we all know that the Stormy Daniels thing, at best, is nothing. At best. Look, billionaires sleep with hookers all the time. No big deal. I don't want to say it's the right thing to do, but it's not necessarily, something that's going to tear down our image of a president. After all, lots of presidents have done the same. Not saying it's okay, just saying. Post 1760. Now we get this. And of course, this is the tweet from June 10th. Q is pointing this out. This week promises to be very interesting. Might want to follow my Insta handle, MJ Avenatti. Sounds like Avenatti and Brennan, who was a leaker, seemed to know something that the rest of the public didn't. And Q takes us back here to June 10th, where he says, start the clock. A week to remember. Think logically. First, private. Classification 5 through 6. Second, public. And I'm assuming this is talking about the slow walk that we've been talking about with the DOJ documents, right? First, private, we get some of the testimonies. Maybe the 5 or 6. I'm not exactly sure what classification 5 or 6 is. You can let me know what you think down below. But I think the general idea is that, first of all, we got to get some of this testimony and some of the documents private so we can figure out what we can redact, what we can use to make that big thing that is about to drop that Q was talking about. And then second, you can bring it public. Blackwater on guard. Blackwater, basically private paramilitary security, usually a lot of retired Navy SEALs, Delta Force, whatnot, team guys that have either retired and want to go in the private sector. And, they've been linked to sort of black and white hats, but it looks to me like these days, Blackwater's on Team America, and that's a good thing. Q says evidence kills. Yeah, I would assume that if they're willing to be so bold to tweet pictures like this, and to talk about things like Trump being a temporary aberration, they're ready to kill at any moment. And it looks like they've tried already. Q says, these people are stupid. Yeah, a pretty stupid thing to do, Michael Avenatti, Rule number 1, don't talk about Fight Club. Dumbass. Let's move on. Q moves us over here to post 1761. It says, bigger than you realize. They know the real traffic this is generating, connecting people together. And then takes us to this Time magazine, and I've taken you this before. We're not going to go way through it. It's talking about the 25 most influential people on the internet. And QAnon's one of them. He's way down there. He's up there with, what are these guys? This Korean band. BTS. Yeah. I volunteered at this kid school, and they all love this band, BTS. They're big on them. I guess they're huge. Okay, so Logan, Jake Paul, and a lot of people I don't know. Rihanna, I kind of know her. I don't know who they are, but you understand. It's a bunch of people. I don't know who these people are. I know who he is. I guess I do know some of it. I don't know who they are. Doesn't matter, all right? Famous people. And Q's on the Times list, and all these people are super famous. 25 most influential people on the internet. And Sir Patrick Mack is way down, not on this list. Okay. Q says, stay the course. Where we go one, we go all. Yeah, they know the real traffic this is generating. It's big time. He said the whole world's here, right? Everyone's paying attention to QAnon. The baddies, the goodies, and the in-betweenies. Everybody's checking out QAnon. And there's a lot of people that are trying to discredit QAnon. And the more they try and discredit QAnon, the more the QAnon phenomenon keeps going on and on. And at that, I'm moving on. Those are your Q posts. I hope that helps your research. I would love to spend time, a little bit more time on Avenatti, but gosh, there's so many posts already. Q definitely just unleashed the beast with these. So fun stuff. Should be some interesting documents coming out this week. I'm very curious to see what will happen with these quote unquote interviews. Not sure if we'll get them this week, but maybe we'll get them announced this week. But as always, if Q does any more posting, I will be right on it. That's what I got for you today. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you didn't like this video, do me a favor and do all that stuff anyway so you can come back to the next video and feel the same way about the next video. All right. I am also on Twitter at IPOT 1776. That's IPOT 1776. I'm on Gab, I'm on BitChute, I'm on Real.Video, and my Patreon link is down below. All those links are down below, including my email. So if you want to get a hold of me, and I've got a P.O. box down there as well. So check all that stuff out down in the links below, and that's all I got for you. This is Sir Patrick Mack.